Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Express. I'm Neena Gopal. This is the new Indian Express's weekly interaction with experts where we analyze the impact of developments in our backyard, on our neighborhood, on India. Do click on the new Indian Express's website and tweet and follow Global Express. So, Pakistan, as most of our writers and analysts have said, is supposed to have reached this inflection point in its history, where the Pakistan military is supposedly has its back to the wall. It is all the political parties are in election mode, and the army's seeming masterstroke of political engineering, the pact that the new army chief Asim Munir has supposedly arrived at with the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who returned home to Pakistan last month after 4-year-long exile. We could see a Sharif reinstated, not necessarily Mr. Nawaz Sharif, but maybe his brother. But it doesn't take away from a number of developments that are worrying, that face the country, and will be, I think, some of the challenges that will face the new government that takes over after the February elections. One, of course, is the perilous state of the economy. The second, I think, are these sustained attacks now on army installations. The latest one being in the Pakistan Air Force Base in Mianwali, which is not in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or in Balochistan, but not even the Durand Line, but deeper in Punjab. Now, the caretaker Prime Minister has given a statement yesterday saying there were 15 suicide bombings that were carried out by Afghans. He's now expelling undocumented Afghan refugees and blaming the Taliban government for refusing to help stop Afghan militants from using Afghanistan to attack, mount attacks on Pakistan's forces. He hasn't named the Tehreek-e-Taliban. He hasn't named the Tehreek-e-Jihad Pakistan, but everybody else has, which is quite interesting. So, today, as, neighbors like us, like India, allies like China, the United States, Gulf Arab powers like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, all want to invest or stabilize Pakistan. And they are concerned. The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and the Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, are in Delhi this weekend for the 5th round of the 2+2 dialogue. I'm sure Gaza will come up, but so will Pakistan. And the question today, is it as important, as vital to the US as it once was? Or has the US shifted gears, shoring up Delhi over, Rawalpindi headquarters? Taking us through these choppy waters is noted Pakistan scholar and author of definitive book on the Pakistan Army, Military Inc., Dr. Aisha Siddiqa. Welcome on the program. You've helped and guide and mentored innumerable students, I think, including now a whole bunch of them in India. So welcome, Dr. Aisha Siddiqa.
Thank you.
Ambassador Fabian has served in a number of countries, including Iran and Qatar. A sane voice that we all heed. Welcome, Ambassador Fabian.
Thank you.
And we also have Avinash Mohanane, who's a retired intelligence officer who served for several years in Pakistan and has a good understanding of contemporary Pakistan. So let's start with you, Dr. Siddiqa. What is the genesis of these groups, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the Tehreek-e-Jihad Pakistan, which is a completely new name in the thing? How much of a threat do these militant groups really pose to the state of Pakistan? What, can they actually rupture the, sort of Pakistan on the comeback trail after the military and the, the political, establishment has sort of come to a compromise?
See, thank you for inviting me. I think it's important to give a historical context. And the historical context is that when after 9/11, when Pakistan reversed its policy of militancy, and there were militant groups which still wanted to fight the jihad in Afghanistan, and but were stopped. And they got angry, they believed in their agenda, and these are the ones who picked a fight with the Pakistani state. So Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is not just the Pashtuns, but also other ethnicities from within Pakistan. predominantly perhaps Pashtuns, but Lashkar-e-Jhangvi or other militant groups, members of those militant groups which broke away and joined Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, but also other like Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, Khorasan. So, there's a cocktail of militancy in Afghanistan. There's a lot of factionalism among them as well. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has gotten a fillet with Afghan Taliban returning to power. Now, this gang wants to, of course, expand its influence, expand its control over Pakistan, definitely Pakistan's tribal areas and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And that's what the, hullabaloo is about. And that's also the anger from the Pakistani state, which has been unable to negotiate with the Afghan Taliban to find a way for these Afghan Taliban to control the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is linked with the Afghan Taliban.
So is this a way of settling scores that they are then expelling, these hundreds of thousands of Afghans who have lived peacefully to a great extent, integrated into Pakistan? I mean, many of the Afghan refugees, have even married and, in Karachi, you hear more, more Pashto than you hear Urdu.
Well, as far as Karachi is concerned, there's been Pashtun migration. One of the biggest Pashtun migration, of course, has been to Karachi. But then within Punjab, there are cities like Multan, which are equally a favorite destination for Pashtun migrants. And with Pashtun migrants, there is also a Afghan element as well.
So isn't this a kind of a prod, a destabilization, if you go and if you upset so many of the people who've lived there for so many years and who've actually never done anything so far. And I remember you telling us a couple of days ago, Dr. Sadiqa, that Imran Khan's allowing the hundreds of these Taliban fighters to come and settle in the tribal areas was another source of.
See, the problem is that having a long connection with the Taliban, there was an expectation that the Afghan Taliban will help harness the Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan. That didn't happen. So that is one frustration. The other is that it's like putting pressure on the Afghan Taliban. That, look, I'm going to send back. This is 1.7 million Afghan refugees.
Absolutely, yeah.
After Afghan takeover, there was about 600,000 to 700,000 which came to Pakistan, seeking refuge from the Taliban. What Pakistan Pakistan's decision is the state's decision, represents its frustration, but also a signaling to the international community. Because for years, the international community has helped, especially the United States, sustain these refugees.
Yeah, absolutely.
By helping Pakistan monetarily. That is not happening. So signaling is all right, fine. If you're not helping, then why do we need to have them? And in the process, perhaps not thinking, because out of these 1.7 million, a lot of them don't have documentation. The whole idea of documentation is being revised. There's also this understanding, a lot of them, what the state also has done is it has said, go get registration, get visas and come back. It has suddenly introduced a methodology and it expects these Afghans who've been living here for years and have documentary proof, even they are being evicted. So, it's with the same whip that, they are.
So what I'm saying is, would this not have angered the community and drawn them into, sort of attacking the military establishments, or are these people separate from that? The refugees are not the ones that really should be blamed, as the Prime Minister is.
No, I wouldn't blame the refugees. I think what the caretaker Prime Minister is saying, what he's also pointing the finger at the Afghan Taliban.
Yes.
Right? And the problem is the new army chief who took over felt very frustrated. I mean, constantly, every day, there has been attacks against hard targets, military targets. There has been collusion between TTP, Baloch nationalists, that is happening too. So it's like a state's decision. I mean, any state would perhaps, in order to protect itself, would do it. They've done in a haphazard manner. I mean, I don't entirely sympathize with the way every Afghan is being treated the same way. People who had right with being, for whom Pakistan was actually your first home for many years, for decades now, have also been turned out. But this is what, and today, in fact, government of Pakistan has said that it's withdrawing help and support from the Afghan Taliban. So
that is going to be quite
so it's going to be more interesting now.
You also said, I'll just come to you guys in a minute. I just wanted to ask Dr. Siddiqa about whether the blame should be put on Imran Khan, because you said he was very crafty in the way he thwarted the army when he realized that the former army chief, General Bajwa, was about to oust him, but he allowed the settlement of these, elements to come into the country. You said he didn't even, he didn't approve of the IMF loan. I mean, he didn't go through the process. So do you think that Imran Khan, at the end of the day, should also bear some of the blame?
I think where he must definitely bear the blame is that his partner in crime, General Faiz Ali, is the one who had his own idea of demobilization, disarmament and reintegration. And under that, some of the TTP were brought back and resettled, and this is the TTP which is causing the problem. The government of Pakistan, of course, would not agree with my version. Their argument is that no, it's people coming from within Afghanistan who are attacked.
That's right.
But I would argue that we cannot not look at the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan warriors that were brought back, that were accommodated without really reintegration, because personally, DDR as a concept is for ex-combatants. And in a lot of areas, it does not necessarily work. It's a very hard pill to swallow and a hard strategy to work out.
Mr. Mohanani, I'd just like to bring you in. You made a very interesting comment recently where you said the Pakistan army has shifted its blame game. In the past, where they blamed Indian interference for everything that happened, in Pakistan, now they are blaming the Taliban. So what is driving the Pakistan army and the caretaker Prime Minister should shift the blame like this? Do you back that? Do you see this army's narrative changing? Obviously, after the attacks.
It has changed significantly. Earlier, it was to blame India, that Indian elements or the national NDS, the intelligence organization of Afghanistan, they are backing the TTP and they are backing the Baloch separatists. Now, what happened is on 15th August 21, the Taliban took over, Afghan Taliban took over the government. And within 2 days, they released all the prisoners that had many TTP terrorists also. They released all of them, including one former deputy chief of TTP, Maulvi Fakir Muhammad. Now, if the Afghan Taliban wanted, they could have handed over these people to Pakistan army. but nobody was handed over. So even the Baloch separatists, they said that they have safe havens in Afghanistan. So now there is no, not even Indian mission, not in Indian consulate, nothing is there. So the whole narrative based on which Pakistan Army was preparing dossiers and dossiers and presenting to the international community of so-called Indian involvement, now this is nowhere. It's fallen flat. So now they blame it on the Afghan Taliban that they are doing it. Now, as you said in your opening remarks, that the acting Prime Minister says that out of 19 or 20 suicide attacks, 14 were carried out by Afghan nationals. So it could be true. I don't have the knowledge whether this is true or not. So if these are Afghan nationals, then obviously these Afghan nationals are not being used by India. They are coming either from Afghanistan or they are based in Pakistan. So that is why the whole narrative has changed, reversed. And now they want to pack these all people back to show their anger. Because Dr. Siddiq Aga also very clearly said that the international community is just ignoring it. US is cutting separately deal with the Taliban in Doha. Thomas West, who is the US representative for Afghanistan, he is holding talks with the Taliban in Qatar. China has sent its own ambassador to Kabul. So, where is Pakistan? Then the Pakistan's problem, nobody is addressing it. And if you recall, the top commanders of TTP, beginning with the founder, Baitullah Masood, Hakimullah Masood, and all three top commanders, they were killed by the Americans in drone attacks.
That's true.
Now the Americans are not there.
Yeah. Dr. Siddiqa, would you like to comment on on how this affects, because Mr. Maulani has also written very interestingly about how the TTP has made threats against the Muslim League Nawaz, against the PPP, against the Awami National Party, the Pakistan Tahaffuz movement, and I just felt that, if they're going to go after them, as he rightly puts it in his column, that the beneficiary would be Imran Khan. Would the army actually allow something like that to happen? I mean, they've already splintered the party, so, but this man is popular, as you mentioned, and, both of you say.
He's popular, but, the two issues here. I don't think that fighting the Taliban is going to depopularize the military, as long as they can prove that the problem is solved. By the way, just to kind of add to the earlier conversation, I don't think that they're not naming India, but they are, a linkage is mentioned between the Taliban, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan and India.
That's very interesting.
That suspicion is often voiced. They're not kind of shouting at the top of their heads as in the past. But definitely, I think because what happened there is what I'd call a cycle. They used to blame NDS, they used to blame Indian Research and Analysis Wing, but then Taliban came, and I think there's a lot of criticism which came from within Pakistan, with people asking this question that now what's happening? I mean, earlier you said there was India, but now there is Afghan Taliban, and Afghan Taliban are your friends. India is not there. So who's doing it? What's happening? So some of the, establishment commentators like, former High Commissioner Abdul Basit, etc., if you look at his commentary, he would still blame India. Some of the people still are. That, in their minds, they do the calculation and the connection. But I think for them right now, what's important is to fight the Taliban, the larger threat being that if you don't, then the war is going to spread to other parts of Pakistan.
Exactly. As it has in it is all the way in
Yeah,
to Mianwali.
So, I mean, my fear would be that it comes, I'm apprehensive, they might come deeper into central Punjab. That's where the danger kind of also lies.
Oh.
What one would be worried, if I was a security establishment, I would be worried about it. Fighting the Taliban, controlling the terrorism threat, I mean, I don't think that that's going to necessarily add to military's unpopularity or benefit Imran Khan that way. I think what they're hiding behind and not really managing to prove is that initially they did after May 9th. There was a talk about how Imran Khan had these for his security, had some of these militants from the northern areas surrounding his house in Lahore. So that those details need to be brought out.
That's very interesting. Mr. Monani, do you have anything to say about the fact that India is still being blamed?
Yeah, as she's rightly pointed out, there are some sections or what we call as embedded media in India. Also, we have people like that, and in Pakistan also. She mentioned the name of former High Commissioner to India, Abdul Basit. They would still be saying so, but there is no hard evidence that is coming around, and there is no specific thing that they can pin it on India, that this is being done by India. Yes, of course, they have to sustain a narrative, because otherwise, if they don't sustain a narrative, the people will question how come everything that was told for years by Pakistan Army is no more relevant today.
Yeah, Ambassador Fabian, I wanted to bring you in right at the beginning, but the topic of Tehreek-e-Taliban just took over. So, do you see the United States? This is a new angle which a lot of people are talking about. I think Dr. Siddiqa would also have spoken about it. Do you see the United States rethinking its whole policy towards Pakistan? I mean, it was the chosen ally from the time of General Ayub, and the anti-Soviet, putting it in the anti-Soviet camp. So, does Pakistan still have geopolitical relevance? Ambassador Fabian. I mean, Pakistan needs Chinese investment in Gwadar. Although that's looking very difficult because of the attacks that are happening on the Chinese engineers in Quetta. So, does India fit the bill better in Washington as a counter to China? Is that what's bringing the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and the Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, to India for the 2+2 talks this week?
Thank you. Well, 2+2, this is the fifth such talk. It started in 2018. And basically, India and United States are getting closer and closer. And you might recall, the communication and Comicasa, communication and that is interoperability and all that. That was also signed. So that is there.
That's right.
I would put it this way. I mean, there is a lot to discuss for the 2+2. And I take it's only a guess, that America has ceased asking India to support America's stand on Ukraine. And America will certainly recognize that both America and India have the same stand on Israel-Palestine, except you and I may note that America would like to be seen as having asked Israel to comply with the rules of war, but without really seriously meaning it.
But don't you think, Ambassador, that also that the Nijjar episode in Canada has sort of soured relations between India and the US? Are they coming to talk about that, or are they coming to talk to us about the Qatar espionage issue of the Indian sailors in Doha? Isn't the US also concerned about China's presence in the Maldives, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka? And like I said, Nijjar.
Yes.
I'm sure they're all, and Pakistan now.
Yes, there is a lot to talk about, as I said. And the Nijjar matter will be raised. As to how much they are going to tell us, the public, that's a different matter. The Nijjar matter will be raised, and we know that the United States has made it clear that they too have some intelligence in this regard, and that they had shared it with.
My first question, the original question I asked you about Pakistan's relevance to the US strategic thinking, do you think that's still, as big on their agenda as it used to be?
I'll put it this way: there is a tendency in India to, what shall I say, predict the implosion of Pakistan day after tomorrow, or
Dr. Siddiqui has been saying the same thing for days.
yeah, or to say that, Pakistan's, America's interest in Pakistan is going down. I would maintain that America's interest in Pakistan remains, for the obvious reason it is a major Islamic nation with atomic bombs. Okay, so there is no question of America's losing interest. But of course, when Afghanistan was there some time back, Pakistan was the conduit and all that. That's a different matter. But America's interest in Pakistan remains. And in India, this constant obsession with how is America looking at us? How is America looking at Pakistan? No, we should stop this obsession.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, actually. Dr. Siddiqui, you want to comment on that?
No, I agree. I don't think that it will be that discussed in detail. I think what is important is that United States has had a longer relationship with Pakistan than with India. While India, this romance is building up, Pakistan has been had a relationship, being married and divorced, kind of a thing. United States still wants to continue to talk. Firstly, Pakistan is a nuclear weapon state. Secondly, piracy, counterterrorism, there's much to talk about. And certainly, with a long relationship, why would it, doesn't want to let it slip entirely into Chinese lap? So the conversation, but I think what United States has done is, in the last decade, separated the conversations. It doesn't bracket the two countries. In fact, it's FPAC, Afghanistan, Pakistan.
That's true. That's true.
That delinking has been done. I don't think that they'll talk about that. They'll definitely talk about the Middle East. They'll definitely talk about Canada and other strategic situations, but not necessarily Pakistan.
That's very interesting. Ambassador, if I can come back to you, how do you view the meeting that is set to happen between the US President Joe Biden and the Chinese President Xi Jinping on November 15th on the sidelines of the APEC summit in San Francisco? Because US companies aren't exactly comfortable now continuing in China, because the heads of their companies keep getting spirited away and disappearing, so to speak. Do you think that will be a transformative meeting if Xi Jinping does arrive at the APEC summit at all?
Well, America has been chasing China for a long time. You know that. How Blinken, Anchorage, if I get it right, 2020 March, first meeting between Blinken and his Chinese counterpart, how he bungled it. When I say bungled, when international conferences take place, we let the camera come in and then we say nice things about each other. Instead, Blinken chastised China and the Chinese gave it back to him. And with the translation, I believe it lasted more than half an hour. You know what I mean? And that is not the way to treat China. Now, then of course there was that, what was it? Something in the sky. You remember?
Yes.
A balloon,
Yes.
whatever it was. And then he cancelled his, going to China. Then they learned the lesson that the Chinese can handle all these things. They are not scared of China, of America's not talking to them. And then Biden started begging in public for a meeting with, I'm using plain English, sorry for that, for a meeting with Xi Jinping. So they sent John Kerry and, all of them. Now this meeting is going to take place, and it is all a question of, how China views it. They view Biden as domestically weak, not very likely to be re-elected, but nevertheless, they will try to get as much as they can from him, keeping in mind that this is not the beginning of a long-term or medium-term relationship.
That's very interesting.
Can I come in just very briefly? See, let's not forget that, you just mentioned one part of the story, which is that American companies are being thrown out. But the way the West and the United States have blocked Chinese expansion, Huawei and other companies. I mean, let's not forget this. This is a different kind of a Cold War. It's not just about military, but also all kinds of technologies, technological battle, a technological competition. And so, they will discuss and talk. They haven't talked in many days and months and years. And also, to get a sense, I mean, I would say that Biden would also want to get a sense of what China would want to do and proceed, how it will proceed in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think the Middle East actually is going to be very critical because China's connections with Iran and its support of it's been reaching out to Saudi Arabia in such a big way, and it's a huge presence in the UAE and Qatar. So that of course is I'm sure dominant. And the Chinese presence in Balochistan, Mr. Mohanani, if I could bring you in, what is it that is there some kind of a feeling that China will sort of keep Gwadar on ice for a little while until they can be reassured that their people, their engineers and their staff will not be targeted by the Baloch nationalists?
Yeah, the security concerns are now serious for the Chinese engineers and Chinese workers in Balochistan and in Northwest Frontier Province, now Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So Chinese are a little wary of further investing in Pakistan or expanding the project's China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Recent meeting between a caretaker Prime Minister Kakar and Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping emphasized that there is a need for security for Chinese personnel and institutions, because there has been an attack on Chinese center in Karachi, a suicide attack by a Baloch woman, which is unheard of in Pakistan. So Chinese are facing quite a resistance. The reason for the same being that the people of Balochistan feel that Chinese are interested in the exploitation of mineral resources with no benefit is going to come to them. Gwadar port has been built and there has been deep sea fishing by the trawlers, largely Chinese trawlers, that have killed the livelihood of the local fishermen. Then a lot of checkpoints have been installed in Gwadar and other areas for the safety of the Chinese people there. But it has created a problem for the local people. They can't move from one place to another without so much of harassment. So the people were promised a lot of jobs in Gwadar, the local people. They are not getting any jobs there. So those are the issues. They say that what is the need for this Gwadar port if it doesn't serve the purpose of the local people? That is why there is a public protest by the people from in Gwadar. And then the Baloch separatists are also targeting the Chinese interest. But recently what we have seen that even the ISKP also may be Khorasan province, they may also be targeting the Chinese interest.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because we have some attacks taking place. There was an attack on the Chinese engineer working on Dasu hydroelectric project in Kohistan. it is believed to be perhaps by the TTP. Because if we should not forget that there are elements of East Turkmenistan Islamic Movement, ETIM. They may be there in the TTP, there may be in Islamic State Khorasan province. So while domestically China pursues the anti-Muslim policy in Xinjiang, but expects that it doesn't boomerang in other places. So this is what is perhaps happening, that Chinese are facing the heat, and they sought the help of Pakistan army to secure their movement, etc. But there is a limit to which the army can do it. It can't overstretch itself so much. So it's a very difficult situation for China to further enhance the investments in Pakistan.
Dr. Siddiqa, if it comes to you on Pakistan-China relations and Pakistan-US relations, now that Nawaz Sharif is back in the reckoning, do you think Beijing and Washington will go back to viewing Pakistan as a trusted ally? I mean, he's the one who initiated CPEC. He got the Pakistan's back channel to Washington. I mean, are there new bridges being built? Are there people who are now talking, projecting Pakistan in a new light and saying that, going forward?
See, let me make it very clear. Firstly, there is engagement, there is this defense dialogue between Islamabad and Washington. That continues to happen. Problem is, United States does not have the money any longer to invest in South Asia and to invest in Pakistan. Between Ukraine and Israel, it is facing a burden of $100 billion. The demand is very high. And if it fulfills it, then it's going to really affect the dollar. So on top of that, if you put Pakistan there, even it may be peanuts. But I don't think it's ready or intends to give peanuts. But relation can be moved on to other things, which is transfer of knowledge, education, exchange of education, and these kind of softer things that can happen. So that relationship will be there. And because of Pakistan's problems lie elsewhere, which is Pakistan's need to negotiate with their IMF, International Monetary Fund, for which it needs United States pat on Pakistan's back. So that problem remains.
So you're basically saying that that General Bajwa going to Washington and pleading with Washington to reinvest in the military has not.
No, because strategically, see, the United States has pivoted towards Indo-Pacific from Afghan's policy in Afghanistan to Indo-Pacific in 2012. I mean, what happened later was a result of that. After that essential pivot, withdrawing from Afghanistan, negotiating the peace accord with Taliban, it all happened afterwards. So so your question, going back to your question, what Nawaz can do, I think it's also about possibilities that he will be confronted with. I mean, firstly, let's see if and when he becomes the Prime Minister. But the main point is that he would definitely want to reach out to China. He would also want to reach out to India.
I was going to get to that.
So ultimately, who delivers what depends on Pakistan's own capacity to undertake reforms. Pakistan has to, go and bat at the front foot as far as domestic reforms are concerned, to give confidence to be it the Chinese or Indians or any other international investor that Pakistan is not a bad investment.
So do you see that also, Ambassador Fabian? Could you tell us how you see ties evolving between Delhi and Islamabad? Because whenever Nawaz Sharif took office, he reached out to Delhi. I mean, time and time again, starting from Mr. Gujral to Vajpayee to, Narendra Modi, Manmohan Singh, and then Narendra Modi. This time he has an army chief, who is also invested in working on the economy, So, what do you see? Do you think there'll be some kind of movement in February after the election is done?
Well, as we know, diplomacy is a two-way bridge. So one aspect is what Nawaz Sharif will do. The other is how Prime Minister Modi will respond. And do keep in mind the election coming up in India sometime next year. So the question is whether, in case Nawaz Sharif makes a move, whether it is in Prime Minister Modi's interest, keeping in mind his, desire to be re-elected with a thumping majority, whether it is in his interest to respond and how to respond to that move. So it's not that simple. Too many calculations. And I personally would imagine, I could be wrong, that a slightly hostile relationship with Pakistan, where Prime Minister Modi is seen as the savior of India, might gain him some electoral advantage.
That's interesting. Dr. Siddiqa, I know you're dying to say something, but I have a question. Is Nawaz Sharif and this new army chief, General Asim Munir, are they on the same page? Because, whenever Nawaz has been in power, he's always run up against a, army general who's thwarted him.
See, in a book of civil-military relations, it's a book. You have to turn a page. A politician has to turn a page at some point. And the problem is that point, is it acceptable to the army as an institution? What will Nawaz want to do? I feel that if Nawaz Sharif can narrow his activities and his politics to institutional strengthening this time, institutional strengthening, building the economy, and slowly negotiating with the military, instead of going after military individuals to punish them. Yeah, I mean, as civilians who support democracy and who also support Nawaz Sharif, there are many dictators who should be held accountable. The other day, I was watching this very interesting film, Argentina 1985, when the judiciary decided to, take, generals to court and try them. We'd wish that would happen, but if it's to be done at the cost of destroying Pakistan's stability and everything else, then I would say, that he should just take a deep breath, start building up, start creating space for himself, and gradually, maybe another 5 years, 10 years, or maybe 15 years, we come to a point where either Nawaz Sharif or his next generation decide, to try these generals. Right now, if he tries to get active, the page will then suddenly, the book will suddenly be shut by a general and will say, no more.
Ms. Moolani, if I can come to you, do you feel that the army will ever in Pakistan take a backseat? I mean, it looks totally impossible at the moment.
Right now, I don't think it's a possibility that army takes a backseat, because army takeover in Pakistan, or army playing a major role, is in a way approved by the Americans, by the Saudis, and maybe by the Chinese also. Imran Khan was not wanted by all three major players who play a major role in Pakistan's foreign policy. Now, in Indo-Pak dialogue, I am hopeful for some movement forward, in the sense, if that statement has gone underreported, the new caretaker foreign minister of Pakistan, Jalil Abbas Jilani, on taking over, he said that India and Pakistan can restart their dialogue where Manmohan Singh and Musharraf left.
The 4-point formula.
4-point formula or whatever it is. There was something happening. Khurshid Kasuri has also said that the agreement was almost to be signed. Then the lawyers' agitation in Pakistan came up. Now, what is interesting is that this may have the American blessings. My feeling is, because Jalil Abbas Jilani has served in America for many years as the Pakistan's ambassador there. He has been foreign secretary, then caretaker foreign minister.
And ambassador to India.
Yeah, he was expelled from India also. That's also true. But anyway, that we can leave it aside. That is not a matter. Because now Americans want somehow Pakistan to get out of the clutches of the China. And for that, they need some sop for Pakistanis. Pakistanis would like, because it's a asymmetrical now warfare between India and Pakistan. We can't fight a war now. And Pakistan would certainly not like to fight a war with India. And we should also not be fighting with Pakistan. So Pakistan would like that India to be kept under check by through dialogue or whatever it is. Now, the problem between the two countries is that after reading down of Article 370 and 35A, Pakistan sent back our High Commissioner from there and would do its own High Commissioner.
That's right.
We are stuck up there. I don't expect any breakthrough coming even after Pakistan's elections are over. As Ambassador Fabian rightly said, that Prime Minister Modi would certainly not indulge in any adventure at this stage. But the mere fact that now close to 3 years, the ceasefire on the international border and line of control is holding. And this was openly claimed by UAE ambassador to America, that the UAE played a major role in the two countries together.
Yeah.
So we should not be ignoring the other players in the scene. It's not between two countries. The other players are also there. So my hunch is that at some stage, maybe as Ambassador Fabian says, that after the elections in India are over or whatever it is, there would be some forward movement between the two countries.
That's very interesting. Dr. Siddique, I can come back to you. The title of your book, the fabulous book says Military Inc. But in its newest avatar now, the Pakistan Army is apparently the US's active blessing, supplying Ukraine with arms. We've had this conversation and you've said no in the past. But there is a Pakistan Ordnance Board, apparently, which is producing arms and ammunition, to send arms to Ukraine, helping to keep the economy afloat. The military is also taking over farmland, huge tracts of farmland, and turning its hand to agriculture. So it's got a role to play now. It has always had a role to play in meddling in foreign policy. Now it's got a role to play in running the economy. So it has a say over India, it has a say over China, it has a say over relations with the US. Do you see this, that means that the military is not going away at all, at least not in the near future.
See, the problem is that you ask questions which would require an entire program. So let me be very quick. You see, Mr. Monani's been very naughty with details of Mr. Jelani. But let me say, America at this point,
former intelligence officer.
America does not have the capacity to take Pakistan away from China. Because like in India, America wants India to play a more active role, a proactive role in Ukraine, Russia war, but India is not.
Yeah.
So the same way, and one of the reasons is because Russia is one of the biggest suppliers. I mean, 60% of Indian
oil and gas
still is Russian, right?
Yeah.
Now, in Pakistan's case, now more than 60% of weaponry, in fact, more than that, 80% is now Chinese. So how can you snatch away Pakistan from China? It's also, I think, it's even a wrong terminology to use. I think what the United States doesn't want is the balance to disappear. It wants to remain in conversation with Pakistan. So wherever it can convince it and have small stakes here and there where it remains in conversation to ensure that it doesn't flip too much on the other side. But beyond that, there's not that issue. See, unfortunately, the problem is, and let me admit that, yeah, partly the problem, a large problem of Pakistan's economy is, besides many other things, besides, you know, an underperforming economy, a small tax base, an import-oriented economy which needs to turn into export, a larger export base. It's also a problem of a large non-development sector, and army represents that. The military represents that. So how do you tackle that? So nobody is talking about cutting, even reducing wastage in the non-development expenditure. But if you take the aside for a minute, let me come up with suggest something very naughty, my turn to do some naughty talking. The problem is that what Pakistan needs is a Manmohan Singh at this point in time. And unfortunately, it's General Asim Munir who's stepping into those shoes and saying, I think that we invest in IT, information technology, in agriculture, in mining, and, to actually help the country grow. Now,
does he have the economic chops is the question?
No. It's besides the not having the chops. What I think he needs to understand is that this agenda has to come from a political leader. And that agenda will not come from a political leader unless there is political stability in Pakistan. Politicians, I mean, you guys know in India, political parties fight each other tooth and nail. You don't have to be in love with each other. You fight political parties, point a finger at each other. Yet, there has to be a government, a political government which is stable enough. Even if it's not rock solid, even if it's doesn't have 2/3 majority on its feet, but strong enough to present an agenda and then implement it. The problem right now is that even with politicians, because if you're going to run a constituency, play a constituency game, then reforms, economic reforms run into trouble. And that's where one, in a very naughty way, says that, all right, perhaps Asim Munir has that stability and power to do that. Yeah, but that's an oxymoron.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, he's not an elected leader, and imposing his will on a country which is in this perilous state that it is in is not going to be accepted readily. In fact, Mr. Mohanani has written that in his haven't you, Mr. Mohanani? You said the same thing. So I'm not going to bring you back to repeat Dr. Siddiqa's comment. Ambassador Femin, could you give us your concluding remarks?
Well,
on where our Western neighbors headed?
Let me put it this way. As regards Pakistan's relations with the United States and China, diplomacy essentially means the ability to dance with more than one partner at a time, and Pakistan has done it exceedingly well. So I don't expect, Pakistan choosing between the United States and China, but China is working hard, not necessarily without some success, in reducing America's influence there. China is working very hard. America also is working. Only thing is that, as Dr. Aisha said, America is so preoccupied with Ukraine, with Israel and all that, there is less time for Pakistan. In diplomacy, what matters is you have limited time. Where do you sort of spend that time on? So some of the files, they get laid on the back burner.
Mr. Mohanani, short concluding remarks before I hand over to Dr. Siddiqa to wrap it up for us.
I see something positive coming out after the elections in Pakistan and elections in India. I feel that there will be some forward movement between the two countries, and it's good for both the countries. There's nothing wrong.
India, Pakistan.
What I feel is that a Pakistan army is behind it. It is not. It would not try to sabotage. So whoever becomes the prime minister, whether it is Shahbaz Sharif or Nawaz Sharif or maybe some other person, I don't know who will be the next prime minister, because this is for the people of Pakistan to decide whom they want to elect as the prime minister. But whoever becomes a prime minister, I think friendship with India, relationship with India would occupy a major space for that government as a part of the foreign policy. And this would certainly be approved by the Americans, that yes, they want a peace between the two countries, because their hands are full at two places. They don't want any flare up on the third side.
Thank you. Dr. Siddiqa, you want to give us concluding remarks?
Well, it's good to hear that we might come, back to the process of peace, which should be, and I think I agree that, even the army is willing to do that.
Bajwa was, right? Until Imran stopped
that. Definitely, General Bajwa was. This one is not spoken about it. He goes and shows up at the line of control every now and then. But that is the game that generals tend to play when they're strengthening their feet. But I think what's important is for the next political leadership. It's a hope and a prayer that they are able to, whoever makes it to the throne, is able to bring that stability and through it the institutional balance that Pakistan needs to get out of this crisis, because this crisis is very different from all the crises that we've had in the past. If used critically, if policymakers act critically, this could be a game changer for Pakistan. If not, then we are going to fall in a darker hole, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Dr. Siddiqa. Thank you, Ambassador Fabian. Thank you, Mr. Mohanani, for participating in the program. Thank you, viewers. Please click on the New Indian Express website and watch Global Express. Thank you very much.
Thank you.